Well, let's bring in our panel of party commentators now, who will all be watching the budget details closely on Thursday. Susan Smith, Tim Powers is a Conservative commentator, and Kim Wright's an NDP commentator. Good to see you all. Susan, the government's approving the Bay du Nord oil production project. What does that do to the credibility of the government's climate plan and whether it really is serious about cutting emissions from the fossil fuel sector? How can it defend this?
I think it is very serious about cutting emissions from the fossil fuel sector, and it's all about doing things better. With new technology, you can reduce emissions. There's no question, and there's never been any. We still have to heat our homes, drive our vehicles, and we have partners in Europe who need resources that don't come from Russia. There's no better place to do that kind of development than in Canada. It's something on the East Coast. It's jobs that are very, very important to the East Coast, and it's all about the way you do it. So if you're going to bring a new project online, you bring it in a new way that does things differently and takes emissions into account.
Tim, you know what this project means to the economy of your home province. What do you think it means to the Liberal government's claim that it's serious about farming? Can you do this and still have a credible climate plan?
Well, I think that's the argument Premier Furey and Seamus O'Regan made, not to make the argument for the Liberals for them, but the oil on the offshore coasts of Newfoundland and Labrador, under the water there, has much less GHG in it than oil in other parts of the world. I think it's like 6 kilograms per barrel compared to 48 for some of the oil that's produced in Alberta. And that's the argument that Premier Furey, Seamus O'Regan and others, and the opposition in Newfoundland and Labrador have been making. I mean, this is a massive deal for Labrador. There was political risk there for them too, because Peter, slightly, but Newfoundland and Labrador, who's always voted consistently Liberal, at least since the 80s, could have lost 6 Liberal MPs in the next election if this project were not approved. It was that important. The trouble now is going to be with Minister Guilbeault and in Quebec and how they explain this deal there and trying to link it to their just transition agenda, because if they really are about just transition, this is a good project. Just transition should be.
Okay, Kim, what do you think of this decision?
Yeah, there's a lot of coulds and shoulds and maybe, and certainly maybe it's a lot better than when the project was originally predicted and talked about a decade or so ago. There are lots of concerns that the environmentalists are moving. There's also the political, not only in Quebec, but as part of their new collaboration and oversight with the New Democrats, how this will unfold. But there is no question that how we wrap our minds around the energy sector writ large, how do we ensure that there are protections for the environment while we can still maintain our own independency from in the geopolitical space. These are critically important things. This cannot just be another press release and maybe we'll get around to protections later. Those protections.
Okay, Susan, let's to the budget here, and we may hear more about Bay du Nord in the budget as well, but lots of demands for the Minister has to consider. Those decisions have been made by now. What are you expecting to see by way of new spending, and will we see some sort of longer-term vision for the economy than just plugging, funding in here and there, sort of everywhere, and with some sense of what that means over the long term?
I do hope fervently that there is a long-term vision for the economy. I do think we'll see it. We're seeing leaks and things about a growth fund, which is focused on green economy and as part of the transition and moving in that direction. We've been here in a critical mineral strategy. Those are the minerals that we need to make cars. We've seen some recent investments on that. I hope there are mechanisms that enable Indigenous communities to participate significantly from an equity perspective in natural resource development. That's something that's been missing, and I think we could see that as well. And in terms of the immediate spending, I do see an immediate spend in the defense sector. This is something that has been called for. We're acutely aware of it in the context of Ukraine. Right. On the down the road spending, pharmacare, dental care.
All right, Tim, what do you want to see in the budget? Not so much the dollar by dollar issues, but a guiding vision or a guiding principle for what all of the spending is supposed to do at the end of the day for this country.
Yeah, well, what do the next 10 years look like as best you can predict? Appreciating that if somebody had tried to predict 10 years ago, 2 years ago, they would have been wildly off the mark. Pandemic, I think, look, what is the strategy for managing the deficit over time? Because that does matter. We can't keep spending the way we are. What is the strategy for attracting and retaining business in Canada? Look, Peter, it's no coincidence that the Bay to Nord announcement was today and the budget is tomorrow, because as is expected in the budget, where there's going to be some taxation measures in there that big business is not going to like. So how is the government going to try and find accord with big business, who we still need in this country to fund and drive the programs that are so important? And I guess the last thing I'm looking for are, where are the no's going to be in that budget? Because there's a lot of laudable things the finance minister and the prime minister say they want to spend money on and seem to be indicating that they will. Can't spend money on everything. So what doesn't make their top priority list, and how does that shake out?
Kim Wright, the leaks suggest we're going to see a significant NDP handprint on the budget as part of the agreement between the NDP and the Liberals. What do you want to see? And talk to me as well about, is this the kind of budget that needs to talk about transformation, about, as Tim suggests, where the country is going to be a decade from now?
Well, look, as I always say, show me your budget and I'll show you your values. And this is an opportunity for this government in minority parliament, with an agreement with the New Democrats on confidence and supply, to actually show the things for decades. Meaningful movement on dental care. If that is not in there, I'm not sure that the development of this deal with the New Democrats is worth the paper it's printed on. We'll also want to see meaningful movement on pharmacare. We're starting to see some of the stuff around housing strategies, in particular affordable housing. Those are going to be not only New Democrat priorities, but they are the priorities of Canadians. And look, this is an opportunity for this government to show that they can walk and chew gum. Yes, there will be defense spending, absolutely. And they were looking for a dance partner on that before this deal with the New Democrats came to fruition. But there is also the things on social programs, on the environment, on Indigenous affairs. Those need to be front and center. So again, it's a walk and chew gum budget. At least it should be.
All right, Susan. Let's finish on this. Do we need to see some sort of commitment from the Liberals in this budget on a path to some sort of fiscal prudence, some sort of way out of the cycle of spending down the road, with a view to balancing budgets and cutting the debt?
I think you'll see Minister Freeland talk about a fiscal anchor. This is something they've talked about before. Debt to GDP has always been something that's very important, that the Liberals have kept an eye on. And even in the context of the pandemic spending, which I think across all parties we recognized as a country we had to do, they kept it within a ratio, and they kept their eye on that. So I do expect a fiscal anchor, and I do expect there to be something that they're keeping a firm eye on, though I do think there will be a lot of spending in this budget. I also would go so far as to say I think this is the last big budget we're going to see for a long time.
All right, Tim, what are your thoughts on the need to show something about fiscal anchors or a path to balance?
Yeah, I think everybody wants it. It's not just the market. They want to know that there's a path out. They want to know. It also provides some sense of security going forward. It also helps with investment planning. So I think they need to get there, and I think they need to shadow it sooner. They also need to do that to manage the political attacks that are going to come their way from the Conservatives and others who say they don't understand fiscal rectitude, they don't care about it. Bigger vulnerability for the government as time goes on.
Final thought from you on this and the need to show some sort of bottom lining in this budget, and as Tim says, a pathway out.
Well, look, I would be surprised if the Conservative leadership candidates don't already have their press release written that this is the most atrocious thing ever happened. My goodness, I note my cynicism today. But look, the reality is this will be, hopefully, a budget. People can say, okay, coming out of this pandemic, there are some certain cracks in this country we need to start to shore up. What does that look like? Are these things so far down the road, Peter, that no one actually believes? Question mark, and certainly something I'm looking for. Does there need to be a path to prudency? Sure, but that's austerity. That is also investing in our values as Canadians.
All right. Well, we'll see what we end up with tomorrow when we get the budget. Thank you all for your perspectives tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Peter.